Welcome back to another episode of What Are You Made Of with your boy, the unstoppable Mike C-Roc. I have another guest on this show today that some would consider unstoppable. And I want to introduce you to my friend, Richard Greene. He has coached celebrities ranging from Princess Diana to Debra Messing, also Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith to help them utilize their celebrity towards effective non-partisan civic engagement. He's responsible for countless overtures between political parties and celebrities. He's known as the master of charisma by the Sunday Times of London. He's an engaging and thought-provoking speaker. Richard has also been on the other side of the microphone as a talk show host, interviewing senators, congresspersons, and the major news personalities and providing commentary for ABC radio networks, Fox News, and others. Richard, welcome to the What Are You Made Of show.
Thank you, man. I just want to clarify, especially given the Will Smith, Jada Pinkett situation now. It was a number of years ago, I got an email saying, Will Smith and Jada Pinkett are doing a movie, and it has a critical public speaking scene in it, and we want you to come and advise them on what makes a great speech. So I actually thought, even given what happened at the Oscars, that Will's acceptance speech was actually pretty extraordinary. A lot of people criticized it, but holy mackerel, what an incredible moment to have to go deep into your heart and your center and your vulnerability after all of that. So, I am not in touch with them, but that was an incredible honor. And I spent a good hour with them going through breaking down the minute details of what the character who was giving this speech in this movie that they were producing needed to do in order to have the impact that I know they wanted that character to have.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the clarification. And, I would say at that moment, there was two instances of, what I call confronting. I love confronting rather than running. And he confronted one aspect, whether it was right or wrong. And he also confronted the fact that he had to go up and give that speech. And like you said, I thought that was impressive as well. So,
here's one thing. Yeah. I just want to add on that, which I think is really interesting. And as you mentioned, I've had the incredible honor and privilege of being with and coaching and supporting and hanging out with and learning about some extraordinarily successful people. I mean, at the very, very top, right? I mean, presidents, prime ministers, Princess Diana, lots of billionaires, lots of CEOs. And what I loved about that moment, which kind of goes to what are we made of, we kind of got to see that Will Smith, with his, 40 million Instagram fans or whatever he has, and his hundreds of millions of dollars, and his marquee status as one of the great actors, most popular actors, both in TV and movies. And he's got everything, got the beautiful wife, got the beautiful kids, he's got the house, he's got everything. And he's still human. He's still flawed. He still overreacts. He still has traumas and dark shadow sides that are still running through his perfect life and his perfect body. That's the message.
Yeah, I love it. 100%. And
we're
now,
all the same. So we're all made of the same, right? We're all made of the same electrons and protons and neutrons and molecules. And we all come, and I know you have a spiritual background, we all are the same, and we come from the same stuff, and we're made of the same stuff in this human meat suit, as people would say, which is the outer layer of the deeper essence of who we are on a spiritual and soul level. And that's, I think, in terms of what are we made of, how do we get where we are, I think it's by allowing our soul, which is part of the all, part of God, however you want to call it, to do what it's meant to do, what it came here to do, what its dharma is. That's what powers everything.
Now, are you going to go with that answer for the question, what are you made of, Richard?
There are many levels, right? There's just there's 7 chakras. I mean, I can focus on any one of those chakras, but I think what I'm made of is what everybody's made of, what everything's made of. I am part of the all that is. And my job, as I said, is to leverage that which I have, which is unique, because we're all together, we're all the same. I'm made of exactly the same stuff. And I have unique experiences and unique skills that I can only learn about by going into my own self-discovery.
Okay. Love it. I love it. That's what I was looking for. So let's go here now. Like, how did you get to where you are today? Where did it start? What was you know what, you can take us back as far as back as you want, but what was the catalytic moment that got you on the journey to where you were working with people like Princess Diana and advising people on a movie like Will Smith and, you know,
and being Tony Robbins' lawyer, right?
yeah.
And
And being,
that was a big part for me, but it goes way back before then. And then I'll tell you the Tony Robbins story, because that did change my life.
okay.
I mean, Tony's changed a lot of people's lives. I mean, I had an incredibly intimate experience of having my life changed by Tony. It really started when I was 6 years old, lying alone in my bed in New Jersey and trying to figure out where I came from, right? You're saying, what are you made of? You know, where did I come from? Right? Mommy and daddy, where did they come from? You know, grandma, grandpa, nanny, and papa, where did they come from, right?
Yep.
We go all the way back. And then it's like, okay, well, Adam and Eve, okay? And it's like I'm 6, almost 7 years old, and I'm thinking this, okay, so Adam and Eve, so where did Adam and Eve come from? Oh, they came from God, right? So I'm just reciting what it is that I learned. And then I remember breaking out into a cold sweat, because it was like a circuit just kept repeating and it kept heating up. And it's like, well, where did God come from, right? God came from his parents. Again, I'm 6 years old. It's like, but where did his parents come from? God came from a thought. God came from a grain of sand. And I couldn't figure it out. And I literally, at the age of 6, made a decision that I was going to figure it out. So that was a huge part of my spiritual kind of curiosity journey. And Einstein says curiosity is like the most important aspect of a human being. And I think that's true. And so I studied politics at college, went overseas for a year abroad at the University of Reading in England, then came back and started law school at USC. And because I really wanted to be a politician. My dream was to be a congressman, right? That was my fantasy. First, a baseball player for the Dodgers, and then that seemed like that wasn't going to work out. And then a congressman. So I graduated law school, started doing some work in some law firms here. And then in 1983, I got a piece of mail in my mailbox showing a picture of a tall, very young guy with a suit, barefooted, walking across a bed of hot coals, and said, "Fear into power, the firewalking experience. Come learn how to overcome your fear and become unstoppable and walk on a bed of 10 feet of hot coals." And this was in 1983. And I went, it was in Santa Monica, 150 people were there. And it was Tony Robbins' first seminar in the United States.
Wow.
And afterwards, I walked up to him and I said, "Listen, I'm a lawyer in town, and I just have to say, I think you're one of the most extraordinary communicators I've ever seen. And I know you're going to go on and make a massive contribution to the world, and I want to help you do it." And he went, "Okay, cool. Let's have lunch." And so we had lunch, and then I became his lawyer, and he moved into my law office suite area. And we stayed up till 2 and 3 every morning, kind of brainstorming how he could do his career. And in the process, I learned his technique. I got to watch one of the greatest speakers in the history of the world and figure out what made him, what he was made of, and decided what he was doing was way more fun than practicing law. So after 2 years of being with Tony as his lawyer and part of, one of the few members of his team at that point, I decided that I wanted to do that, quit my practice, traveled around the world, spent 3.5 months in India and Nepal, shaved my hair, the whole thing, and came back and said, okay, I'm starting fresh, and started then at $7 an hour as a behavior education coach for Nutrisystems.
Wow.
using what I learned with neuro-linguistic programming and Tony Robbins to help people lose weight, and also doing some private coaching, at a little more
Yeah.
than that, but basically starting all over and
Wow.
struggling, and then decided that the biggest niche that I thought I could make a contribution to, because Tony was doing his thing, was the number one fear in the world. The number one fear in the world is public speaking. More people are significantly afraid of public speaking than even death. And so I figured out from, again, modeling Tony, integrating neuro-linguistic programming, some of the aspects of that, and my own experience as a public speaker and a lawyer, breaking it down, creating a whole new model that completely redefined how to teach public speaking. And that's what I've been doing for the last 37 years in 53 countries. And it's been really cool.
And now, who is your favorite speaker of all time?
Well, funny you should ask, where's my book? I actually spent a year and a half to write a book about it. And this came out in 2002, and it's the 20 most inspiring speakers of the 20th century. And I would have to say, I don't know if you can see it, this guy here.
Yeah, Martin Luther King Jr. Yeah.
Yeah, he's when I talk to people and they say, "Oh, I think I'm good," I say, "Okay, are you as good as Dr. Martin Luther King?" And they go, "No." And I said, "Good, then there's room for improvement."
How can anybody say that they're good and not like, I'm never content with like the level that I've achieved. I mean,
Well,
I'm happy no matter what. I feel happy, not all the time, but most for the, obviously the majority of the time, but I'm never like, there's always more. We don't know what our potential is, right?
Well, that's what makes you, right? And that's what drives you. And that's an extraordinarily important component of success, right? But I'll tell you the answer. It's because of ego and people feeling insecure and not wanting to even address the fact that they're not as good as they could be. And my response to them is like, hey, man, Roger Federer, I'm very into tennis. Roger Federer takes a tennis lesson every freaking day. Right. So, but that is the biggest issue in personal growth coaching, right? For people, maybe they don't have the bandwidth or they don't have the resources, but most people do if it's important. It's that sense of not being motivated to be all they could be. And that's what makes you, again, that's what drives you. And I love it. And I can totally relate to it. And back to the Einstein quote, it's like the curiosity. And so I play a lot of tennis now. And it's like, I don't care if I get destroyed 6-love. But if I can learn something by playing a player who is way better than me, and it's like, I don't care. You're great. Congratulations. You won. There's no ego in it.
Right.
And so if people say, okay, I'm a good public speaker, but I could be better and I can have even more success and I can impact people more and more authentically and more deeply and create the kind of culture that I want, right? And if I'm a little bit better, that's the attitude, but not everyone has that attitude. And that will put a total limit on their success.
Yeah. So they're kind of trying to stay safe, right? Is that the ego does, it keeps you safe and secure and
well, it's safe, right?
Yeah.
Right. And for people who have done experiences where they've expanded their consciousness, either through meditation or plant medicine or in any other way, where you're able to have some sort of an ego dissolution or ego death, you actually understand the ego doesn't keep you safe. The ego keeps you in a box. And to the extent that that ego is controlling you, it is keeping you in a place where I think what most likely arises is something called the imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the reasons successful people don't go further is it's like, oh, hold on, I got to stay in my safe little shell where I'm in control and no one can see that I'm really not quite as smart or as good or as capable as they think that I am. Because, and that's a big part of narcissistic personality disorder, which is an element with a lot of people who are leaders of countries or leaders of companies. they're actually more sensitive than other people. They literally cannot handle being criticized or being seen to be weak. And
Right.
that's what's happening right now with Putin, for example. That's why
That's what's going on.
The war in Ukraine will not stop. Putin will never, ever, ever show weakness or defeat. He can't, because of the way his narcissistic personality disorder is controlling him, connected to that egoic need to be strong, to be whoever you imagine yourself to be, but are not completely that.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've worked with students, and maybe you've experienced this yourself. And I've noticed this, is that when you do let go and you go for it and you try to take things to the next level, and you're making that leap, and you start to see your own power that you've been blessed with, given, or whatever you want to call it. The source is debatable for some people. I know what my source is, but when you achieve certain things, you see the power that you actually have, or the light that you see, and you're like you're scared of it. Like it actually is so intense that when you achieve certain levels, I'm sure you worked with people and they end up being great speakers, and they, some pull back a little bit because they can't take whether it's the publicity, the whatever it is. Have you experienced that? You know what I'm talking about?
Well, that's the Marianne Williamson quote, which was previously attributed to Nelson Mandela. We're not afraid of our weakness. We're afraid of our greatness or light. I forget the exact quote.
Yeah.
It's a little overwhelming. And I think there's the Eastern spiritual approach to that has two things that I think are very valuable, which is not to have expectations and not to be attached to anything, right? If you're attached to anything that's currently happening right now, then you can never go beyond that.
True.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And also that sense of just surrender, right? Letting go. And then, and again, going back to the ego. And if you totally are in that space, that Einsteinian space that I see you being in, Mike, of just, I want to explore. I'm here for a limited time. Let me explore. And you say you know where your source is from. I also have, as I kind of alluded to, you and I may not agree on this, but I'm such a huge fan of Einstein, and Einstein was a pantheist. In fact, I wrote a little book on Einstein.
Awesome.
E equals MC squared. I know it's probably backwards. E equals MC squared and the new definition of God. And part of that new definition of God is a pantheistic view, which I'm fascinated by. Do you know what pantheism is?
No, and I look words up when I don't know. So excuse me for not looking at the camera for a minute. You can explain it to me though. Go ahead.
See, there's the curiosity. See, now that is exactly what you are made of, man. Because look what we just had, a real life example. I came up with something and you say, oh, I want to learn. Right. So what is it? What's the definition say?
It's the view that the world is either identical to God or an expression of God's nature. It comes from pan, meaning all, and theism, which means belief in God. So according to pantheism, God is everything, and everything is God.
What do you think about that?
No, I'm with you. That's even people in Christianity don't realize this. They separate God from themselves when really it talks about the fact that you let God in and we're in the image of God. So there's all these different religions are so connected. It's just the way people interpret them, right? But I'm with you.
Can I give you a 3-sentence poem that kind of encapsulates
of course you
this?
Can.
It's my lawyer mind trying to answer this idea that people have. Oh, God is everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And so I said, okay. So again, my lawyer mind, but then the people who say God is everywhere also think that we are filled with sin and other things. And I said, well, hold on. If God is, this is the name of this poem, if God is truly everywhere, where would he not be? That's the name of the poem. If God is truly everywhere, where would he not be? A rabbit, a thought, a friend, and an enemy, a mountain and a tree. And if God is truly everywhere, he must also be me.
Yeah. Wow. I guess, the question is really, is there good and bad, and is there really enemies?
No, there's not.
Right. Because there's an enemy if there's good and bad, but if you really don't look at good and bad, it's just an interpretation of something.
So here's the thing. I mean, we could look at Hitler, we could look at Putin, we could look at people who are who do very, very bad things. But so I'm wearing a black shirt. Okay, you're wearing a black shirt. What most people don't know, black is not a color. Black doesn't exist.
Right.
It's the absence of light. Right. The reason it's black is because what's in the fabric literally absorbs all of the light. And there is only one kind of light, and that's white light. Right? You can break it down with a prism, see red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, but it sucks it all up and nothing reflects back, right? Yep. So black is an illusion. Darkness is an illusion, right? Evil is an illusion. It's just the absence of that which is. You have free will, you have free choice. You can focus on that illusion, or you can focus on the fact that God is everything. Yeah. And so what we are all made of is that God nature, and it's our mission in our 70, 80, 90, 100, 120 years on the planet, I think, to become more and more connected, fully connected to the who-ness of who we are and the what-ness of what we are.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also believe that we're here to see what we can do with the physical universe, because if you notice, they have evolution of things and how fast things evolve and innovation happens. It feels like we come into this world and we do this and then we learn something from it and then we leave and then we come back and maybe it's not the same spirit, but it's new people, whatever, new cells. And then there's innovation that's designed from what is learned from the past. And it's, it's a great conversation.
Back to your point. I mean, everything is evolution in that sense, right? We're constantly growing. And so even if we think we're not growing, it's like, oh my God, I'm going backwards, man. It's just getting worse. That experience is growth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're creating, as Tony would say, new distinctions. Wow, I thought I was cool, and then there's this, and now I understand that's not really who I am, and I need to take this action, and I need to chill out, or I need whatever, right? You can't not be learning. You can only be not aware of the learning if you choose to limit yourself in that way.
Yeah.
And another quote that's so great, it's like this bottle, it's like this idea, oh, you're a glass half full person, and there are glass half empty people. And then Reverend Michael Beckwith created this, which I think is so brilliant. I mean, this bottle is physically half full of water, more or less, but it's completely full. It's impossible for a glass to be half full, because even if it's half full of water, the other half is full of air.
Yep.
It's half full. You're just choosing not to look at it that way.
That's the reality that you've taken, the agreement that you have with it. And I think too, like for example, Putin doesn't think he's bad. He doesn't think he's doing bad. He doesn't view it that way. So yeah, we could go down this all day. Let me ask you a question, Richard. When was the moment that you were able to start seeing yourself, not just being able to work with celebrities, like and act actually happening, but being able to feel that type of person, being that, where you notice like, wow, I'm good enough to do that? Like, when was that moment?
It's interesting. That's such a huge question, Mike. I think there's always that little voice in the background, right? It's like, I remember when I was young and traveling around, I was like in my mid 30s, and I'm speaking to all, Swiss bankers who are folding their arms in Zurich or whatever. And it's like, I'm just this kid, from Los Angeles, and they really have their shit together. Sorry. So there's always that, and it's like, I'm not as good as Tony Robbins, or, I'm not tall enough, or I don't have a PhD, or I don't have an MD, or, right? There are a million opportunities for you to devalue yourself. And then I came up with something which I've been teaching for a long time. And that is that, so for example, I'll talk about myself. Some people think I'm the best public speaking coach in the world. Maybe, maybe not. But I'll tell you what I am the best at. Absolutely, verifiably, can't argue with this beyond any shadow of a doubt. I am the best Richard Greene public speaking coach in the world. Meaning
Yep.
that who you are, if you embrace who you are and the uniqueness of that, and really go and leverage what it is that makes you excited and makes you unique and makes you powerful, right? That, and understand that in the history of the multiverse, there will never, ever, ever be another you. You could clone me, I could clone you, but by the time that human got to be in their 30s or 40s or 50s, they would have had a completely different parents, different set of experiences,
Programming.
and they would not be the same.
Yep.
So when my father passed, I looked at him and I believe, as he was gone, and I believe that life never ends. First law of thermodynamics. You know, energy can be neither created nor destroyed. And Einstein taught us that energy and matter are the same thing. And it's like, oh, he'll be back. He's not going anywhere. He's just in another dimension. He'll come back on Earth or some other place. And then I realized, I said, oh my God, that thing I'm looking at, that body, he was almost 87 at the time, will never be repeated again.
Wow.
That unique combination of molecules and plasma and heart and brain and experience and genetics, that will never, ever, ever happen again. It never has happened before my father. It's never going to happen again, no matter what. And that sense of your incredible, absolute, scientifically verifiable uniqueness, that's the superpower. And that's the way you get beyond the, I'm not good enough, I'm into the imposter stuff. It's like, no, I'm the frickin' best Richard Greene public speaking teacher in the world. If you don't want my approach and what I, from my years on the planet, can bring to the experience of teaching public speaking and help you, if you don't want that, then fine, go someplace else, or take what you can from me and then go someplace else.
Yeah.
Right? Like I, as I told you, I'm really into tennis. I've gotten back into, I used to teach tennis when I was in college and law school, but every single tennis teacher, no matter how good they are as a player or as a teacher, they've got something different to teach me, a different approach than everyone else. And so I could go to 100 different tennis teachers and I would still be learning.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's the approach. It's like, I can only give what I can give. I don't have to be the best. I just have to be the best me. And that's going to be a unique, non-repeating experience in the history of the multiverse.
So that's when you started to know that changed things for you for feeling purpose, like the being of worthy or
that
capable,
sense of
right?
That sense of all I have to offer is what I have to offer. If it helps you, great. If it doesn't, great. Am I perfect?
Yep.
No. Do I have some perspectives, some talents that other people don't have? Absolutely. And that's what I want you to focus on. And that's what I'm going to focus on.
And then from there, practically what led to talking to someone that was a celebrity and working with someone, what was the first time or what led to the first big name person that you worked with?
Wow. Yeah, it's just getting out there, right? It's just getting out there. I mean, Tony talks about proximity, right? In other words, you go to, and during COVID, of course, it was hard, but you go to events and you go to meetings, you go to conferences, and you just will keep meeting people. And so the truth is, on Princess Diana, that actually wasn't a referral. A lot of other things came from referrals, like PR agencies and whatever. It's like, oh, you could help this celebrity or whatever. But Princess Diana, I ran into her. I was doing a lot of work in London. I ran into her at her gym.
Wow.
And then we started talking and I wrote her a letter and she invited me to have a private lunch with her at Kensington Palace to talk about how to overcome her fear of public speaking.
And what is your opening line with people? Besides, I mean, obviously you build relationships with someone, but when you get into what you do, how do you lead into that you're a public speaking coach? Is there one way that you go about it, or is it different every time?
I mean, with her, it was obviously a very unique circumstance. With Diana, I had been hired by the television show Extra to fly to New York to critique a speech she was giving at a charity event. She was with Barbara Walters and Colin Powell, and she was giving a speech, and I was there to break it down. And then when I saw her, I said, I just want you to know that your speech in New York with Colin Powell and Barbara Walters was absolutely incredible. And I was being genuine and authentic. And people love being complimented as long as it's genuine and authentic.
Yep.
And she goes, oh, no, I hate public speaking. Right. And then we were off to the races. Right. And but in terms of other people, how it comes, it's just one thing leads to another. I mean, you just keep getting out there and doing whatever you're doing. I mean, whether now podcasts or going to give a talk at a networking event, or someone that you met or you're playing tennis with. Oh my God, yes, my CFO is not a very good speaker. Let me talk to the HR person. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can go through. I mean, I've
Yep.
worked in 53 countries. Well, actually, for me, it was the biggest break, to be honest, was I got an agent, right? And it's who literally didn't give up. And he got me booked. He found the cell phone of the guy who was running the Young Presidents Organization Global Leadership Conference in Singapore. And
Wow.
he got his cell phone. He said, I have a guy who can train you and all your executives and all the speakers. And he's an incredible speaker, and he teaches this incredibly new way of public speaking. And he'd be awesome for the Young Presidents Organization. And I met with the guy, and we kind of fell in love. And he flew me to Singapore, had me coach all of the top people, and then gave a keynote, which was standing room only, 600 people. And out of that 600 person, actually it was a breakout, not even a keynote. Out of that 600 people, I got booked in like 33 different countries.
Wow, man. What was the thought that went through your head after that? Like, did you feel like you accomplished something huge, or what?
I knew I nailed it, because it was an hour-long thing, and and everyone was standing eating their lunch because there was no room, right? It was, totally maxed, and no one was leaving, and people wanted to come in. And it's like, you can feel when you're on a roll and you've totally surrendered to being of service to that audience. So in the back of my head, oh man, this is good. This is going to be a lot of business, right? I literally made significantly more than $1 million from that speech, from that one breakout. And the back of the head, it's like, I'm thinking about myself, and I said, no. Until this is over, I am totally in service to these people who are giving me this incredible gift of their attention, even sitting on the floor with their box lunch. And I'm just here because listen, here's the bottom line in public speaking. I'm going to redefine it for everybody, right? It's not about you. It's not about selling your product, your service, your book, your ideas. It's not. Public speaking, great public speaking, is nothing more than having a conversation from the heart. Number two, about something that you are authentically passionate about. And then the third thing is the most important. So 4 words encapsulates this third thing, and it's like, it's all about them. Not about you.
Love it.
It's all about them. And so the old way of public speaking is, I'm not even going to look at them. I'm going to look over their head. I'm going to imagine that these poor suckers are sitting naked or in their underwear, right? Which is such a incredibly disrespectful, arrogant, hierarchical thing. I'm up on the stage and they're nothings and I'm great. That's BS. That's the opposite. It's all about them. You want to look in their eyes. It's all about them. So having great public speaking is nothing more than having a conversation from your heart about something that you are authentically passionate about. And part of my training is like, this stuff, you're not passionate about it. How do we get you passionate about it? Right? It's the passion that fuels your great speaking, right? about something you're authentically passionate about. And the third thing is in order to help other people, in order to share information with them, share ideas, share products, share services, share yourself, so that they can solve their problems. They can be better. They can be healed. They can move to the next level in their own evolution, right? If you focus on them, you're no longer going to be scared. You're giving a gift. And sometimes I have someone come up out of the audience who's afraid. I say, who's afraid? Right? Someone raised their hand. I say, come on. And I have some $100 bills, or I imagine, I say, okay, here, I'm giving you a stack of $100 bills, one for every one of the 150 people in the audience, right? And your job is to go person to person, like, there's a car for you, like the Oprah thing. Here's $100 for you, 100, right? And $150 $100 bills that you're handing out. And I said, would you be nervous doing that? And he almost
not.
Every time the answer is no, of course not. And I said, well, why not? Because I'm giving them $100. And then my answer is, if what you're sharing when you're speaking is worth less than $100, then don't do it.
Right. Yep. I love it. That's 100% on. I've never ever have that sweaty palm feeling or that heartbeat. Like, I get excited because I love doing what I do when I'm on stage, but it's all about them and engaging with them. Like, why would you not look at them? I mean, I want to look at their face and see their response so that I can maybe talk to that person, ask a question, or get the energy going, man. Man, you're spot on with that. I know you know that already, but just, I'm in agreement with that 100%. I got to respect your time here because we're over, and I can go on and on and on with you. And I want to apologize for going over.
No.
Final question, because I want the audience to be able to engage with you as well. What's the vision for the future for you, and what's got you excited that you're doing right now?
So I have three areas in my life that I focus on. the core, the bread and butter, and I've been doing it for so long, but I still love it, is public speaking. Like, I'm going to be speaking in a couple months to a couple thousand people. Love it. I'm going to Germany next month and speaking to, some smaller groups, and I love that. And I keep having things come, and I will continue to do that. I mean, I would rather be in front of an audience of 100 or 1,000 or 5,000 people than doing almost anything. It doesn't scare me. It's like a spiritual experience.
Yeah, I agree. I love it. It's great.
And I can teach people. It's like, so you can have a vibe with one person, but if you have a vibe with 1,000 people, man, it's like an altered reality experience. So there's that. And I'm going to continue to do that. And then I really am passionate about the kind of redefining spirituality and God. And it's my little children's book, E = MC squared. So I love talking about that. In, the two things that people are not supposed to talk about, religion and politics, those things are two of my favorite things, because it's like, it's real. It gets real, man. Who are we? Why are we here? What is God in the universe? Why are we not talking more about that rather than the Kardashians? I don't know. That seems like an important thing. It's almost like, you are what you eat. And if you eat constantly junk food, your body's going to reflect that. If you constantly are having superficial conversation, your soul, your psyche, your brain is going to respond to that. And you're not going to grow in the same way as if you're having deeper conversations, even if there's some disagreement. But the thing that I'm really focused on, to be honest, right now, is the 2022 midterms. And I have created a completely new model of civics and politics. I used to teach civics when I was in law school, that can actually bring the country together. And it's focused on issues and specific bills. For example, yesterday was 420 Day. I don't know how you feel about marijuana, but the vast majority of Americans, Democrats, Republicans, independents, men, women, old people, young people, the vast majority of Americans believe that marijuana should be at least decriminalized, if not legalized, and medical marijuana, almost everyone agrees with that, and CBD, and other derivatives of the hemp plant, right, should be legalized, but it's not, right? And so there is a piece of legislation called the MORE Act, the Marijuana Opportunity Restoration and Expungement Act, that passed the House of Representatives. And if we elect a few more people who support it to the United States Senate, it can actually pass the Senate next year and be signed into law. And all of the people, for example, who are in jail now because they had possession of a small amount of marijuana, when we have states like mine in California where you can go into a dispensary and buy as much as you want. I mean, it's just not equitable. It's
and
not
the money, it's causing people to federally be criminals in a way, because the federal government doesn't recognize it as legal money or
right.
gains, right? So it's like,
in this bill, there will be ways for the federal government to make money off of that, right? There'll be an excise tax, right?
Yep.
So it's and climate change legislation and voting rights legislation and equal pay for women and background checks for guns, right? There are things that the vast majority of our country agrees with, but because of obstruction, primarily by one party, and this stupid filibuster rule, which says that a simple majority in the United States Senate cannot pass things, you have to get 60. And getting 60% is way harder than getting 50% plus one person.
Yep.
Right. But so the midterm elections is an opportunity to actually create our reality in a macro way. That's what politics is. I'm responsible for creating my own individual reality by the way I think and my actions, how I eat, all of that. And we create our collective reality in large part by electing our leaders who set the tone. You know, a CEO sets the tone in a corporation, and leaders in Congress and the White House and governors' houses, they set the tone. And there will be 120 million American citizens eligible to vote who will not be voting in the November 8th midterm elections. As a result,
because of from marijuana prosecution?
No. I mean, these are people who, even if they were felons, they now can vote, right? We have 120 million, mainly young people who, I don't care about politics. I'm disengaged.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And people of color, because they don't understand, the game of politics. And so my message and what I've been working on a lot is, let's have this not be the midterms, let's have it be the marijuana midterms. And
right. Okay. Yeah.
Put a theme. Let's have it be the climate change midterms. Let's have it be the equal pay for women or the voting rights right? So pick an issue that you're passionate about, kind of like when you're public speaking. How do you get passionate about it? Pick an issue you're passionate about and find the people. I mean, they're more likely to be one party than the other, but find the people who are going to make that happen. All you need to do is get 60 people in the Senate or 51 people who can change the laws, and then re-elect 218 people in the House and have a president who will sign it. So there's the magic number of politics. It's just a game, second grade arithmetic, to get to the numbers of people who support your vision of how your city, your state, your country, your world are going to be. And that's that's incredibly exciting to me. And so that's going to be my focus, teaching civics, teaching how we come together as a country around the issues that we already agree on.
Well, but let me ask you this as we wind down, because I know, Richard, do you think that there's something out there, someone, something, some group that does not want us to be unified, that wants to continue to divide because it keeps something or someone in power? Because that's what I look at a lot of times. And this is my observation, whether it's, I don't know if it's true or not, but I'm looking at it and I see that when I'm out in the real world, if I'm on Clubhouse talking, I don't know if you're familiar with Clubhouse or not, but there's the Clubhouse, and I'm out like, there's a lot of conflict, but there's also a lot of unity. I see more unity with the people that I hang out with, which is a very diverse crowd. And I feel like that a lot of people are getting brainwashed or indoctrinated into divisiveness. And I think that's intentional so that we don't unify. Do you agree with that observation?
Well, many people have said that Putin, for example, has a real desire to see disunity and the consequent weakening of America, right? I mean, throwing nuclear bombs at each other is not the only way that you can wage war, right? Yeah. And so there certainly is that, but there's also, I think, in social media is incredible. I love it. I love Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Clubhouse, all of those things. But when I was younger, my parents, my grandparents, my brothers, my friends, we all watched the same reality on television and on radio. We had very limited avenues. It was only 3 television stations back when I was starting out. Right?
I remember.
And that means you all sat down and you heard what Walter Cronkite was telling you about what was going on in the world. And then you could have a conversation based on a shared consensus reality based on that. And then also, limited radio shows. And now everyone has curated and created their own reinforcement loop on things. And we saw that with COVID and with masks and with vaccines. And so I have a solution for that as well, which is we need to have real media that takes it on. It's like, okay, Bobby Kennedy, you think vaccines are horrible and they're going to kill us? Great. Let's have you sit down with Tony Fauci. Let's have an intelligent, thoughtful, lawyer-like conversation about vaccines, about masks, about whether Donald Trump won the election or not, and it was stolen from him by Joe Biden. A lot of people believe that. And as a lawyer, I'm trained to let's just look at the evidence, right? So let's have more conversation, but in a respectful, logical, productive way. And I think that's our way out of that.
I agree. I see a lot of this happening on Clubhouse in the more word. I want to be careful with the word. Not the nonsense rooms where people are uneducated and just ranting. The more intellectual rooms, I'll say, the more informed rooms. I see a lot of that happening, and it's happening. I've seen people change their minds and their beliefs that I never thought would by being and spending time in these rooms and actually listening to people. And again, it's amazing.
If you come with an open mind, coming back to the very beginning, Mike, you are a learner. You're curious. You have this beginner's mind. It's like, I just want to learn more. And that's the real solution, right? The real solution comes with the individual responsibility. The people that are consuming this very jaded social media, feedback loop that they've created. And it's like, just keep an open mind.
Yeah.
I got a huge compliment from a celebrity friend of mine. He goes, you're not like other liberals, because he's like a moderate, right? And he gave me all sorts of stuff. He said, you actually are open to listening to the other side. And I said, why wouldn't I be?
Yeah, I mean, I'm by the way, I'm a moderate as well. I lean a little bit further to the right, but I love talking to people that are liberal, because I want, like you said, it's curiosity. I want to learn, like, why do you think that way? Maybe what am I missing? Am I missing something? Because if you're not that way and you're like, my way is the right way, and I don't care what you think, and you're crazy. Liberals are crazy, or far right people. That just that just doesn't make any sense for growth. Like, I don't know how people live that way. So
right. And it's a generalization, but generalizations are destroying the world, right?
100%.
So the truth is, even if I'm a liberal, I'm a Richard Greene liberal. And like what I was saying before, I'm going to have a unique take on it.
Yeah.
And even if ultimately I vote for the same people that you don't vote for, you might get something different by actually having a conversation with me and me with them. And one of the reasons, last point on this, that I have my political views that I do is, I'm a big D Democrat, right? That's my political party. You may have a different one, because that's where my values are. But the truth is, even more than a big D Democrat, I'm a little D Democrat. I believe in democracy. And all I want, and this is what my civics teaching is about, is let's actually actualize the things that a majority of Americans want and not get stopped and blocked and have people feel like there's no hope, that our democracy doesn't work, because democracy is the rule by the majority. So whatever the majority of Americans want. So if the majority wants a wall on the southern border, let's have a wall on the southern border. Mm-hmm. If the majority wants to legalize marijuana, let's legalize marijuana. I mean, that's the essence
of democracy.
Democracy. And that's what I'm working really hard for.
Yeah. And I, you know, despite the fact that you're further left than I am, I still like you. So that's the other thing. People don't like the other people for some reason. So anyway, Richard, I had a great conversation with you today, and a lot of things get done through conversation. And I want to thank you today for joining us. What's the best way for the audience to engage with you or contact you?
Well, probably the most, so I have Facebook and whatever, but probably the most relevant is my Twitter, at the Civics Dean, at the Civics Dean. But if people want to reach out to me, I'd love to hear, oh my God, I saw you on Mike's show. You're so full of it. I love getting those, as opposed to, oh, I saw you on Mike's show. You're awesome. Whatever it is. I mean, I don't have a problem with people emailing me. It's like, I don't want to give out my email. No, it doesn't hurt me to have 100,000 emails, right?
Yeah.
Richard at wordsthatshooktheworld.com. That's my email address, Richard at wordsthatshooktheworld.com, the name of my book, that one. Or www.richardgreene, with an E on the end, richardgreene.org. That's my business website. And awesome. my TED Talk is on there as well.
Yeah, go check out Richard's TED Talk. I saw that. I didn't get the chance to watch the whole thing. I started, to be quite honest. I saw it, and I'm going to finish watching it myself. So, Richard, thank you so much for being here. I consider you a new friend. And if there's anything I can ever do for you, just ask. I'm your boy, C-Roc, man. And you guys have been listening to the What Are You Made Of show with C-Roc and our new friend, Richard Greene. Go subscribe to the platform, guys. Go subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, YouTube. Watch these. They're not just a podcast. They're also a show that you can watch. Keep coming back. Keep subscribing. And again, thank you so much for support that you've given me and my show. And until next time, be unstoppable.